Welcome back to NFRW on the Issues. Today we're tackling some important and timely topics. First up, we're diving into the disturbing rise of anti-Semitism and violent protest on college campuses, the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, and with us is Congressman Burgess Owens. And then we're also going to be talking about what is the House doing to push back on Title IX. So college campuses is the topic for today. Congressman, you were among one of the first members to pass an anti-Semitism resolution after October 7th. The piece of legislation for today, though, Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, which passed the House and is now in the Senate, this is directing the Department of Education to use the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition of anti-Semitism. Which I agree with. However, 21 Republicans did not vote for this. If we cannot agree on something as simple as defining anti-Semitism, how can we unite to counter anti-Semitism on college campuses and stop the radicalization and indoctrination of our students?
Well, first of all, it's a lot what was just said here. I would say that I've probably never been more excited about where our country is than I am today, because we're beginning to wake up to see what the issues are. What Americans need to understand is that this has been a problem for decades. There's been a slow march of Marxism throughout our institutions since 1930s. And that slow march, it's not something you see very obviously, but it leaches out into other areas. Once our kids grow up and start believing these concepts of Marxism, which is antithetical to everything we believe in. Mm-hmm. American way is faith, family, free market education. Marxism is exactly the opposite. We don't see it until we all of a sudden look and find out that they're doing things in the corporations like DEI that doesn't make any sense. We see things like, instead of meritocracy on the football field or in the military, we see these ideologies coming in that does nothing but divide people. So the fact that we're having these conversations is very important, and it unfortunately does take sometimes tough times to wake up. In our case, we went through COVID. Parents are looking over the shoulder of their kids and realizing, what in the world are they teaching these kids? It's not critical thinking. It's about hatred. It's about the oppressor and the oppressed. And then we have October 7th. Mm-hmm. And I think the biggest thing that came out of that, not only did we see pure evil, but my concern was we look at our kids and they don't recognize it. When we don't have the heart of empathy, which is what America's all about, that's in our DNA, when you see that lacking, you know we're losing our culture. So that was a wake-up call for me to realize that for our kids to see that and to deny it or not believe it or to be for the terrorists, it says we're doing something wrong in our educational system. So we're seeing it. I also want to say this, Julie, that I'm just thankful for the American people. We always seem to do the right thing at the right time. Sometimes we don't understand until much later on. But they did something very, very important. They gave us a small majority, the Republican House. That small majority is the only thing that's allowing us to have these kind of conversations. Yeah. We're having hearings to talk about anti-Semitism. We have hearings to talk about the racist DEI. We're now understanding with college campuses that we have leadership that has no clue of what our culture is about, and they're hiring people from other countries to come in that really infiltrate our colleges, and then we're teaching our kids from within through indoctrination, and it's all to the same end game: chaos and hatred for what we are. So, to get us on page to the point you made earlier, we need a bigger majority in the House. One thing about the Republican Party, we're not sheep. You go to the other side, you realize that they always on the same page. They never seem to break away. That's because they believe in centralized control. We're kind of the free market. We feel that, if you have a district, you need to fight for that district. You need to stand up and be the person to take it and be accountable to that. But when you have such a small majority like we have, 1 or 2 different votes, it makes a big difference. Yeah. So I'm going to ask, my biggest ask is that the American people really pay attention, give us a bigger majority, make sure that those who are coming to D.C. are America first. Yeah. They believe in our culture. They believe in the free market. They believe in family. We do that, and we can turn this thing around in a very, very quick manner. I also want to say this: thank you for your organization. What it takes for this country to win is engagement. We have a tendency sometimes sitting on the sideline and watching others do their job and figuring out it can be done. We have to come off the sideline, out of stands, and realize that it's us. We have to take our talent, our time, our passion put it on the field right now, and we get that done this coming year, I think we'll come out of it pretty well.
Yeah, well, thank you for saying that. We have, on average, 62,000 members. We are known for our volunteer hours, our grassroots. We are the largest Republican women's grassroots organization. What many people may not realize is that we also educate and train. And that's the purpose of today's segment of NFRW on the issues. It's all about college campuses. We've gone into the anti-Semitism and the war zone of all college campuses. But I also want to talk to you about the Title IX ruling we've just seen. What is the House doing to push back on Biden's kind of redefining Title IX?
Well, once again, it's education. And once again, thankfully, we have a majority that we can have a voice. We have probably the most lawless administration we've ever seen in our lifetime. We have an administration that if there's a way of going toward America or against America, they opt to go against America every single time. And I think what we're finally recognized when we look at the border is just one of those areas that it's pretty obvious what it takes to make sure we're safe. It's it's a common sense. To see how lack of common sense they want to use, that we begin to realize it's on a purpose. So no, putting that in place, everything they do is on purpose. And right now they want to make sure that we do not respect womanhood. One of the things and I grew up during that age, my dad was a World War II vet, and we were taught very simply, if you want to be a successful young man, proud of who you are, learn to love God, family, country, and respect women and authority. When I was in the NFL back many years ago, you didn't have guys when they got a touchdown doing dances and all that stuff. When the camera turned on them, they'll say, "Hi, Mom," because it was understood that men respected women, and you do that, you teach young men as they grow up to do the same, and you hold on to our culture. We right now have a society where we have young men think it's okay to beat up on women. Yeah. And how does that translate? Well, that translates to pictures we're seeing on social media where ladies are being attacked and guys are taking pictures and they sit there and do nothing. We get to that point where our men become whiners, weenies, and wimps, and we don't respect our women. We're going to lose everything that our country is based on. So it's a fight again, but it's a Marxist ideology. The Marxists hate faith, family, the free market education. How do you destroy the family? Disrespect women. So we're going to make sure we're fighting up against this. Again, this is another thing, almost 50 years ago, Title IX came about. I remember it very well. And all these years, it's been very obvious. As a matter of fact, for all the centuries of mankind, it's been very obvious that men and women are different. Right. Our strengths are different. Our weaknesses are different. And you don't take advantage of those weaknesses, which they're trying to do right now. So if you disconnect from common sense, where we don't believe that 2 + 2 = 4, or that men are men and women are women, then where else can you take our young people when they cannot connect those truths together? You can tell them anything, and all of a sudden they begin to believe it. So that's one of the reasons why we're seeing anti-Semitism. They're disconnecting the fact that we should be seeing each other from inside out versus outside in. And when you don't have that critical thinking skills, if you're told to do something, just do it. And that's where we are right now, unfortunately.
It's devaluing life.
Yeah.
It's a devaluing of life. Well, one of the things that in looking into you and seeing all the great things you're doing, and I know we don't have a whole lot of time to get into it, but there was one piece of legislation, if you want to just tell us how it came about. It's accreditation for college excellence, and this certainly caught my attention, being a mom of 5 adult children who all went through the college experience. Tell us how that piece of legislation came to be.
Well, it first of all comes from understanding how DEI works, diversity, equity, and inclusion. It is a Marxist ideology that divides us. We judge each other based on our skin tone. There's an oppressor, and there's the oppressed, which the blacks are supposed to be oppressed. It's one of the most demeaning concepts that's going to come out. So if you start off with that, and then you begin to wake up and find out where it seems to be everywhere. You seem to have it in a place that you just never ever thought. You see it in football, where you think we have meritocracy, where all that was broken down because of the respect you gain from people who just go out and work hard. You see it in the military. So the question is, where's it all coming from? Well, if the nexus is education, then how are they now pushing this stuff in education? Well, at accreditation, you have the accreditors, which is an industry all on its own. Many of us have never thought about accreditors, what they do, and we just take for granted they do the right thing.
Yeah.
Well, if accreditors all become woke, and the whole thing is, what can we do now to make sure that DEI is pushed into it, into college educations, even in colleges that are pushing against this. If their funds are tied to an accreditor that says you have to teach this, or you have to have this outcome, or you will not get the money, then colleges are forced to go in that direction to stay afloat. This bill says you can't do that. We're also looking at ways to give more of a meritocracy process, more options of accreditors. It should always be about outcome. Everything we do is a free market. If you do the best with the best pricing, the best convenience, and the best experience, you win. If you don't, if you're failing, then you go do something else. That should be in not only in education, but also be in their accreditor system. If they're doing a good job and their product are good colleges, they're giving good kids, they should be around. If not, we're not going to fund them. Yeah. So we're having conversations now, Julie, that we just have never had, because up until now it was the Democratic Party that controlled the education. That's right. And these kind of conversations we didn't have. We're saying very simply, it's now about outcome. We don't want kids to come out with debt that will take two lifetimes to pay off, with degrees that mean absolutely nothing, and hate our country at the same time. That outcome means we're not going to fund you anymore. Taxpayer dollars will go someplace else. So it's going to be the fight we have. There are many that want to keep it the way it has always been, with no type of competition. But we now have a Congress in place, and the people are willing now and looking to have changes. So we're in a good place in terms of returns of that, for sure.
Well, thank you, Congressman, for your time. We appreciate it. We look forward to having you back. And thank you for all the good work you're doing to put America first and keep America safe. For more information about Title IX, let's welcome Riley Gaines. Hello, Riley. Thank you for joining NFRW on the Issues. Tell us, what is going on with Title IX?
Well, let's be very clear. This is the most anti-woman, anti-reality pursuit we have seen from this administration thus far. And that's saying a whole lot. A little brief overview on what Title IX once was, what Title IX was when it was implemented back in 1972 under President Nixon, 52 years ago. Only a 37-word piece of legislation, with one word being activity, which gave Title IX what it was most notable for, which is equal opportunity for men and women in sports. Of course, Title IX, it's a lot broader than that, but again, that's what it's most notable for. The Biden administration, the people in the White House leading this country right now, have just rewritten Title IX entirely, and they took this 37-word piece of legislation and created a 1,577-page, almost 500,000 words, a new rewrite. Ultimately, of course, there's a lot of fluff when you take something from 37 words to 500,000, almost 500,000 words. There's a lot of fluff in there, but ultimately, the basis of what this rewrite does, it equates sex with gender identity. Title IX, as said, was once the federal civil rights law that prevented sex-based discrimination on educational programs that received federal funding. By equating sex with gender identity, the implications this will have destroy and abolish Title IX as we once knew it. What this means is men would be able to take academic and athletic scholarships away from women. Men would have full access to bathrooms, locker rooms, changing spaces. Men could potentially be housed in dorm rooms with women. Your speech would be compelled. So if you, a student or a professor, a faculty member, if you don't adhere to using someone's preferred pronouns, or if you, a 17-year-old girl who goes off to college for the first time away from her family, if you're housed in a dorm room with a male and you feel uncomfortable about this and you go to your administration and complain, under this new rewrite, you would be guilty and charged with sexual harassment. Not the man parading around your locker room. No, to President Biden, he's said this. Those are some of the most brave and inspiring people he's ever seen. But you calling a spade is grounds for sexual harassment. Again, that's the in short version. When you have to make something 1,500 pages long, there are things you're trying to hide in there, but I've been so hopeful, really, that we have seen states across the nation ultimately saying, hey, we're not going to comply to this. We've seen Governor DeSantis say it. We've seen Governor Abbott in Texas say it. We have seen Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Governor Pillen in Nebraska, I'll say, hey, this violates our state statute. We're not complying to this. We've seen innumerable attorney generals sign on to lawsuits, ultimately suing the Biden administration and the Department of Education for this illegal administrative rewrite of Title IX. Understand, President Biden didn't go through Congress to do this. This was an illegal administrative rewrite. So ultimately, it is litigation that is going to restore this. Hopefully, Congress introduces a Congressional Review Act. And hopefully, I think the most hopeful thing is we'll get a new president in the White House in November who will not stand for the abolishing of our sex-based protections.
So from 37 words to over 1,000 pages. that is shocking. So we've seen what the states are doing, and that's encouraging. Do you feel like it's mainly a states' right issue, or are you asking our House and Senate to do something about this? What can we do at a federal level? Obviously, the president has a lot of authority, so getting a new president would certainly resolve this issue. But what can we do right now with the current political reality we're in? What can be done?
Well, certainly from a federal level, we have seen both the House and the Senate push back on this. Unfortunately, it has fallen entirely on party lines in both the House and the Senate, meaning when the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act was introduced by Representative Greg Steube in the House, all 219 Republicans voted in favor of protecting women and girls in sports, and all 203 Democrats, mothers and fathers of their own young daughters, voted in opposition of protecting women and girls in sports. Same thing among the Senate. But certainly there is work to be done there. As I said, we hope Congress will introduce a Congressional Review Act. This is similar to what they did with the whole student loan thing. But man, we need to see states pushing back. We need to see the general public, right? Parents. We need to see athletes who have been impacted or who will be impacted by this taking a stand and saying, hey, this violates my rights. That's what we need to see, because look, the public opinion, let's be very clear, while our elected officials seemingly vote almost entirely on party lines at every level, and the way our media portrays this, you would think it's very divisive, this issue. You would think it's polarizing and very partisan, but it is not. This issue of allowing men into women's sports, it consistently polls at nearly 80% of everyday Americans agree that this is wrong and harmful to women, and of course regressive. They use the word progress all the time, but this is taking us back in time. And your common sense everyday Americans who intuitively know that men and women are different, they know this. So this is a winning issue. We have seen the power of public outrage, of national attention. Of course, the media cycle right now with the Trump trial and everything that's going on in the Middle East and these college protesters and different things, it's being drowned out what the Biden administration has done, but we have to hold their feet to the fire. It is up to us, all of us, not just women. Let's be very clear. It's up to all of us.
I agree. And so we know that we've got to win the White House to resolve this. We need to win the Senate. We have a very slim majority in the House, so we need to increase our majority there. But what can the thousands, tens of thousands of NFRW members, keeping in mind that these are women, they're all women, they're the grandmothers, the mothers, the daughters, the aunts. What can we do to help you push back on Biden's revision of Title IX?
Well, one, I think there's a lot of fingers to point, a lot of blame to be had. Ultimately, how we got here. Of course, you can point fingers at the NCAA or the Biden administration or the International Olympic Committee or what have you. But I think there's a finger to be pointed at parents as well. And so parents, and I imagine the parents, the moms that this video will go to, won't have a problem with this, but be willing to defend your children. Defend your daughters, teach your sons how to be strong men. All of these are things that we can do in our own homes. I think so often we talk about what's going on in the White House, but these issues, they don't start in the White House, they start in your house. So certainly defend your kids, teach your kids how to think for themselves. teach your sons how to be strong men, all things that are very important. We need to see, I think a lot of this is stemming from the educational realm, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's school boards at all levels, right? We see the moral and academic rot at the collegiate level in academic institutions, but this is starting as young as kindergarten. So parents, know what your kids are learning, be involved, run for school boards if you have the capacity. And if you don't have the capacity to run, make sure you are voting for people who, you're doing your research. You're voting for people who represent you and your values, your ideals, all things that matter. I think too often we see someone has an R by their name and we're quick to vote for them. And I've certainly fallen into this trap. But just because someone has an R by their name certainly does not mean that they are on our team. So be mindful of all those things. And again, don't shy away from the conversation. Too often, I think as women, especially, women, we tend to be more apologetic and emotionally driven and empathetic, which are wonderful things in their own right. It's what makes us wonderful mothers and sisters and daughters and friends. But that being said, we cannot allow those feelings to make us unwilling to ruffle feathers and step on toes. As moms, that's what we need to see. All of these things can be done and should be done by hopefully everyone who receives this video.
Riley, thank you so much for all you do to keep our young women safe. You've been a good friend to NFRW. NFRW is a friend to you. You have a platform and an audience. Anytime you need, just let us know, and we're there to support you and to support our young women.
Well, you're the best. I so appreciate you. So thank you.